My dead best friend still visits me on Halloween to watch X-Files. It smells like spoiled meat and ozone outside my window, and I know he's here. 13 years is a long time to wait for a ghost, but Bodhi was never one for punctuality. I've carried the story of that night like a tumor in my gut, and I'm just so fucking tired. I need to get this out before I open the door. You won't believe me. That's fine, I wouldn't either. Every shithole town has its monster. Ours was the Tatterdemalion. The story goes that a century ago, an old tailor lived on the edge of the woods. A quiet man who practiced strange folk magic with his needles and thread. The townsfolk, being what they are, decided he was a devil. They dragged him from his shop one night, beat him, and left him to die in the mud. With his last breath, he looked at their faces, the faces of his neighbors, and whispered a curse. He promised to unmake them, to take them apart piece by piece, and wear them like a coat. The next morning, the ringleader of the mob was found hanging from a tree, not by a rope, but by his own skin, which had been flayed and crudely stitched back together around the branch. They say the curse animated the flesh of its victims. That now, a swarm of living, ragged patches of skin haunt those woods. They flow together like a school of piranha, each piece with a hungry, circular mouth, all teeth and suction. They swarm you, bite, and burrow until they've hollowed you out. What's left walking isn't a man, it's just the suit. It's just the most recent body, piloted by 1,000 screaming mouths. Seeing the Tatterdemalion meant someone new was gone, and you were on the menu. We all knew the story. It was just campfire bullshit. Until Bodhi. To understand what happened, you have to understand Bodhi. We were two sides of the same bent coin. He wasn't just funny, he was a lightning storm of manic energy and obsession. He mainlined cryptozoology forums and grainy documentaries about things that shouldn't exist. Our Halloweens weren't for parties. They were for cheap whiskey and marathons of old coast-to-coast AM recordings, listening to truckers describe dogmen on lonely highways. It was our ritual, the one constant in a world that felt like it was coming apart. Then came the year we broke the ritual. The one year I wished to God we had just stayed inside. It was late summer 2012 when he called me. I found him in his apartment, a place that always smelled like stale coffee and ozone from his collection of old electronics. The air was thick with smoke, but it wasn't weed. It was hand-rolled cigarettes, dozens of them, snuffed out in a saucer on the floor. He was pale, his eyes wide and dark. He hadn't slept. He said he'd gone out to the woods by the old grist mill, looking for rare fungi. He saw it, stumbling through the trees. A man, but not a man. He said it moved wrong, like a puppet with half its strings cut. And the smell, he said. Oh God, the smell. Like a butcher shop left to rot in the sun for a week. He grabbed my shoulders, his fingers digging in. Kaz, it's real. The stories are real. I told him I believed him. I lied. I thought he was cracking up, the pressure of school finally getting to him. But the look in his eyes was something I'd never seen before. Pure, uncut conviction. This Halloween, he said, his voice a low hum of excitement. No more recordings, no more stories. We're gonna get proof. We're gonna hunt this son of a bitch. What do you say to that, to your best friend, who looks at you like you're the only anchor in his storm? You say yes. You say yes, because you think you're chasing shadows, and it sounds like a better story than getting drunk and listening to the radio. The next few months were a blur. We became cartographers of the damned. We studied old town maps, cross-referencing sighting claims from decades-old newspapers. Bodhi was in his element. He found an old wives' tale, a footnote in a local history book, that said the only thing that could harm the creature was rock salt and iron filings fired from a gun. It scattered the swarm, broke the curse's hold for a moment. He spent weeks carefully packing his own shotgun shells. It felt like a game. The best, most elaborate game we'd ever played. Halloween came. The air was crisp, the sky a perfect, bruised purple as the sun went down. We walked into the woods geared up like we were hunting deer, not ghosts. We set up a perimeter, Bodhi talking a mile a minute about thermal signatures and EVP frequencies. I just nodded along, the flask of whiskey in my pocket, keeping me warm. It got dark fast. Bodhi would freeze, pointing his flashlight into the black. Did you see that? Right there. It moved. I'd look. I'd see nothing. Trees, shadows. My own breath fogging in the cold. After the fourth or fifth time, I stopped looking. The whiskey was making me mean. We were wasting our night. He grabbed my arm again. Kaz, I swear. It's circling us. That's when I snapped. The words came out cold and sharp. You know, it's pretty fucked up that I'm out here freezing my ass off just because you needed an audience for your little breakdown. I saw the light go out of his eyes. It was like I'd slapped him. That's the last thing I ever really said to him. That one shitty, awful sentence will follow me to my grave. He just shook his head. I'll prove it to you, you asshole, he muttered, and stomped off into the trees, toward a ridge where he thought he'd seen it last. I let him go for a minute, the guilt already chewing on me. Then I followed, trying to work out an apology in my head. I was maybe 50 feet behind him when the smell hit me. Not just rot, it was coppery, thick and sweet. It coated the back of my throat. I yelled his name. He turned, and his face wasn't angry anymore. It was a mask of pure, childlike terror. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then something landed on the back of my hand. It was cold and damp, like a piece of raw chicken. I looked down. It was a gray, irregular patch of skin. Before I could even process it, a searing heat shot up my arm. The patch writhed, and a round, tooth-lined mouth opened in its center and latched on. I screamed, a raw animal sound, and tore the thing off my hand, throwing it into the darkness. I looked up and saw him, Bodhi. He wasn't running. He was standing there, frozen, holding up a small digital audio recorder. He was still trying to get his proof. And then I saw it. It wasn't a man. It was a column of blackness that flowed. A river of ragged shapes that swarmed out from behind the trees. The air filled with a sound I can't describe. A wet, chittering click, like a million tongues in a million mouths. The swarm collapsed on Bodhi. It happened so fast. There was no big Hollywood scream. Just a choked, wet gurgle that was cut short. The column of flesh enveloped him, and when it reformed, it had his shape. It was wearing his jacket, his jeans. It stumbled forward, its movements jerky and unnatural. It walked right past me, ignoring me completely, as if it had gotten what it came for. My feet were glued to the forest floor. I saw the shotgun, lying where Bodhi had dropped it. My hands shook as I picked it up, aimed at the thing's back, and fired. The blast of rock salt and iron tore a hole right through its chest. For a second, I could see the trees on the other side. But the patches of flesh just flowed back in, sealing the wound like liquid. It didn't even slow down. I ran. I called the police from a payphone, my voice shaking so hard I could barely speak. I told them my friend was lost in the woods. They organized search parties. I even went with them, walking over the same ground, pretending to look for him, praying we wouldn't find what was left. We never found a thing, not a boot, not a scrap of cloth. Days later, I went back alone. I found his audio recorder half buried in the leaves. I took it home, and for weeks I was too afraid to listen. When I finally did, my blood went cold. There was the sound of leaves crunching, my own voice yelling his name. Then, the wet, clicking static of the swarm, the gurgle, and then, after a long silence, a new sound, a voice. Distorted, layered, like a dozen people whispering at once. But underneath it all, I could hear him. I could hear Bodhi. "We see you, Kaz," it whispered from the tiny speaker. "We see you." Life went on, or something like it. But every Halloween, a little gift would appear on my doorstep. A single grayish patch of skin, cold to the touch. I never threw them away. I have a jar of them on my shelf. 13 years, 13 pieces, but not this year. This Halloween, nothing. I let myself hope, just for a little while. I thought maybe it was over. Then the smell came back, an hour ago. That same thick, sweet rot seeping in through the cracks around my window. It's stronger than it ever was in the woods, and just now, I heard it. Not a knock. A slow, wet scraping at my front door. I have Bodhi's shotgun next to me. there's one of his special shells left. For 13 years, I've been running from that night, from what I saw, from what I said. But Bodhi was always the brave one. He ran toward the monster. He was a good friend. I guess even in death, he's still trying to show me the way. Time to open the door.